Here now present, excited to share time with your brilliant questions. At all times, available in this wider perspective. You are available to this wider perspective every time you decide to zoom out your focus. In other words, when you're ready to find a different perspective, wider angle, broader view, whichever way you may want to call it, at that place, from this wider point of view, you're able to see things clearer. You're able to receive. This is how you do receive all of those physically focused manifestations of things that you have clarified you want in your interaction with others. And so, as you go about that experience in your own creation, you have options on how you even formulate the desire. And so, just moments prior to the start of the broadcast, over the last couple of hours, there was an unusual setting for Kosta. Usually, things are easing into the movement, things are easing into this place where he softly starts gradually getting himself in a place of softer thought. But there was so much excitement coming through. A new program that's being launched, a lot of excitement about that. A very important tennis tournament, important mostly because of his relationship with his father, where they like to share their passion for the sports. Historic moment, and yet very important from that perspective. And then also setting up this, which is the most exciting part for both Arman and Kosta every time the live broadcast is happening. And so Kosta usually would start tuning out one thing at a time if it becomes too busy. Oftentimes because he would see Armand sometimes overwhelmed. But this time around he felt so steady. This time around he felt that all of these things are building up more and more and more excitement, even directly into this broadcast, as these questions you're about to ask will bring you more clarity than any questions you've asked before. And so, as he was finding that he does not have to choose, he managed to figure out with his intellect a couple of bugs that launch of the program was having. He figured out how to enjoy that moment of celebration with his father. He figured out how to find all the pieces to fall together so this broadcast still starts in time. In other words, not all of the things he could project or manufacture, but some of those things started falling in the lap and making things easier, that everything got set up in a record time and even with few extra minutes to spare. And so, as he was relaxing in a shower right before, trying to soften up the thoughts, the desire came through, the big desire came through, but not from the place of observing variety, which most of the time is the case. It came from the place of understanding that when you feel excitement and exhilaration and thrill about something, when you allow your satisfaction to be predominant, your ease may be infused with some more energy that feels like excitement and thrill and satisfaction when you want to shout through the roofs. Usually at that time you want to milk and you want to squeeze out and you want to keep in those moments to stretch it as much as possible. But the first question that came through to Kosta was, how can I make this very important moment with my dad, this very satisfying moment with my dad even better? And the idea, the desire immediately came from that place. In other words, how can I make this moment even better? What could feel even better than this? And desire came through. And so we wanted to start with this, not only to explain what was happening right before, but to really start talking to you when you feel like you're so steady that all of these exciting things that are maybe sometimes pulling you in different directions, you can find so much steadiness about it, and then really create the clarity of wanting even from that place of love and satisfaction and ease by just simply asking the question while you're in that state. And there is really nothing more satisfying than to dance like that from the place of ease and satisfaction, joy, bliss, excitement, asking what can come better, and from that place guide yourself into curiosity of discovery of that which was asked question. And so we're really, really, really eager, excited, and thrilled to see and hear what's on your mind today. Go ahead.
Hi, Weola. Hi, Kosta. I know you're there and I know you're enjoying this interaction as well. I'm filled with gratitude and appreciation at being here and having this privilege of interacting with Weola through Kosta. And I am so happy that I am part of this journey that Kosta is having, the very beginnings of his journey with Weola. And last time that I was here to ask you a question, I actually felt shy. I held back and felt that my question was not going to help humanity. That my question is not going to be to contribute to the conversation that most of us want to have. But I'm going to ask again in extension of that what I held back. And just listening to you open up the conversation today, it made me realize that I am caught up in all this excitement. And I wanted to make my question clear so that I can benefit the most from this interaction. Because it's not often that I get this chance. And so I'm going to ask it now. I really want to feel good.
Before you get into that question, we want to offer you several layers that you had here. We really want to hear these exciting, thrilling questions, and we do not want you to hold anything back. When in certain situations like this, you get to understand this format, or if you know similar format, but you're hearing the similar, different vocabulary, it resonates. If it resonates, you do not necessarily need to even pay attention to the words. Just exchange on its own is sufficient. But it takes, we agree, a moment or two for you to start seeing how you can formulate the questions. And also, sometimes what you feel, even within you, is the question coming through. Sometimes it takes time for that question to really be asked. Even when you have the question of clarity, the clarity of question in your mind, but you cannot say it out loud, or you cannot really yet say it out loud in front of others, that simply means that you're still percolating and clarifying all the intent around that question. It does not mean that you are really holding anything back or that you're really trying to adjust yourself to something. There is really never necessity for you to push the question in a certain time. We understand that comes from certain contexts of how you might be feeling or imagining this format is supposed to be. But we want to really encourage you in this and every other question that comes through that first, you will always have access to this. For as long as Kosta and Armand are present, they're really excited to be sharing this. This is one big part of what they consider their life work. So you'll have plenty of opportunities at all time to have these reflections in one format or another as the time passes by. And so what we really one more time want to bring to you is that process of clarifying the question, sifting and sorting out the question, is really the time that takes the most of that which you call physical time in order for you to start being on a discovery of that which is answer for it. Because at the moment of clarifying the question, at that moment of clarity of what the question is, that moment of clarity when you're ready to ask the question, even better when that question is percolating within you and then you feel ease regardless of what the mirror reflections are coming through you for you to ask the question, that is the time where the answer is immediately born, and therefore you have easy access to it based off of how long you stay in that question. So as you go to ask this really exciting and for you important question, we want you to really understand that everything leading up for you to ask it was in a perfect orchestration with the speed of you finding it through. And that part of clarity is equally valuable and important as you receiving any answer.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So the biggest thing that is in my mind and in my heart for the last few months has been what is going on in the world right now. Not just in my country, not just in my city, not just in my home, but in the whole world. Is the world undergoing a huge transformation that will change the way that we interact with each other? Because I really want to feel good about what's going on. I really want to have a wider perspective of it. I want to see it from a very, very broad perspective so that I can feel good about it, that I know all really is well, and that no matter what is going on in my physical or what I'm observing right now, all is still well. I want to feel that. I want to feel good about what's going on. Can you please help me clarify that?
Yes, we'll be very specific in the way of bringing this forward. And so, as the focus of global society, if you will, is coming faster and faster in exchanging information, you have even this broadcast is because there is technology basing it out. In other words, you are not in the same room, in the same city, in the same country, unless Kosta and Armand do not know about it at this moment while you're having this experience. And so the exchange of information, the exchange of the sound wave, the exchange of the picture even, is really in a real time. And this is true for any kind of experience that you're having with every thought that you have. Where we're just talking about the physicality of it that you're experiencing right now. And so with that speed now being so clear to you in your physicality, for the previous 20, 30 years more than ever, especially over the last decade and a half, the speed information in changing of it brings everybody easier to focus on the similar or same topics. In other words, it's always been the case when everyone talks about something, everyone's attention goes there, and therefore things get exaggerated regardless of them being positive or negative in the experience. And now take that and put it exponential growth of that speed, and you have quite a lot more movement. And we want to bring your attention to where this movement is in your development, as you're aware in bringing your consciousness as a whole, as through your physicality and over that which you call physical time. There has been the time when there was predominant focus on your physical body, the physicality of the body, in other words, evolving of the body. Just over the last previous certain amount of time, the life expectancy in majority of your planet started bringing to be wider and longer and longer and longer. And so that physicality of the body took certain momentum to get, not only for it to start increasing, but to gain the momentum in which even your physical science is discovering more the nature of it, more the potential and capability of your physicality being able to last longer, of your life, if your desire so to be, can be prolonged to hundreds of years, even if you desire to do so. And so from that point, got the second part of it, which has been your intellectual part, bringing itself to compute with a speed you have not seen before. In other words, newest generations being born, even nowadays, over the last few years, compared to the ones even 20 years ago, have have such exponentially quick learning curve. In other words, the movement and the speed of processing the information, the intellect, the brain working with such speed that sometimes the amount of that information tends to even be not as productive because the balance of that with body is not as much. And so as you continue to look from that aspect, there's been struggles with body, and then the efficiency started becoming better, and there's been the things of desire to move and understand with the intellect, and there has been quite a lot of movement of that. So what is the other vessel that you have to express your experience? Is the emotional part of the vessel. And so as the body is the vessel for expression, and as your mind is the vessel of expression, and so are your emotions. And so when you see so many focused on variety of the topics, bringing themselves to identify with their opinion and their judgment and their information that they're regurgitating in their mind, then you see that they're also identify themselves with their emotion. And so that emotion, instead of being the tool for their steadiness, balance, sometimes becomes their longer identity. Your identity may be in feeling good and somebody else's identity in not feeling good. You with your emotion and then identifying with that opinion, and someone else butting heads to see who is going to convince who into what, who is right and who is not. And so what you're seeing with these really very strongly developed vessels of newer and newer generations, these upgrades that are happening, not only with each generation being born, but with generations being on planet, getting the more awareness and more awareness and more awareness, coming to the more balance. This is, you might say, even one of the last pieces of finding that really beautiful, perfect balance between all of the faculties in your life. In other words, there's been so much time to figure out how to get over in being too physically focused and engaging too much of your body through generations. And now is the time to find that and balance the mind intellectual work being so exhausting sometimes to you. In order to really move from the body, you move to the focus on the mind. In order to move from the focus on the mind, you started moving to the focus on the emotions. And once you move from the emotions, you will move into the full balance of everything that exists. And you have that in each generation of people. There's have always been and always be those people that guide you in that steady experience, because you can see them in variety expressions of life. No one's saying that everyone to live the same, but you can find that at all times in all societies. It is just where the major focus is, and in what you experience, the speed of movement and information is so quick, so rather quick to see it, that your opinions, judgments, beliefs, and expectations are really moving rather with cosmic supersonic speed. And so that brings your emotions now to be taking some of the extreme places and therefore bring you to quite some turmoil. But that is all for you to look for more steadiness, to look for more steadiness, to look for more steadiness, where when you understand that individually everyone is consistently moving towards more and more and more and more balance. Every particle in the universe, therefore every cell in the universe, therefore every organism in the universe, therefore every person on the planet you're in, consistently looking for more and more of that balance. And when you compare yourself to someone else, you might even believe that you can say how far someone gotten, and you would be right in so many cases. But everyone, you can take this for sure, that everyone is consistently looking for the new layer and new balance of their own steadiness between expressing the life force to these faculties we've been talking about. And so as you are observing what you're observing, you may celebrate that it's finally time to have the experience of finding more balance, because once the balance starts being found by many, many will want to share it. Like Armand and Kosta want to share these experiences. Many would want to continue sharing it because of this, because of more who will be looking for it, for what kind of example to see and what kind of process to find infinite number of processes, not one process for everyone to be the same, but for everyone to be so different that they can see that they all are one.
Thank you. Thank you. I had so much revelations in that. I have to listen to that again in the recording. But what process would be best for me to utilize at this time? What I'm hearing you say is, and you said this in the previous interaction as well with another questioner, that we must lead with choosing the emotion that we want to feel and then find the thought that actually matches the emotion that we want to feel. So Abraham had given us the step 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 process and other processes to get to the feeling, but it always starts with thought. I want to now integrate that with what Weola said, being leading with the emotion that we want and then matching the thought with it.
What we are talking about and what we just talked about is really the experience of living beyond the emotions. And so we know so many teachers have been guiding you over last many decades about your emotional system, choosing the best feeling, choosing to see that there is more than you having response, that you're having an emotion in response only, but to get ahead and create the emotion that you desire, because getting ahead of that will get you to allow yourself to move from the question and get to the place of ease or steady or any kind of positive emotion. And so seeing that there is different emotions, and not only seeing that you have different emotions, but seeing that you can predominantly choose where you can stay in those emotions is this most brilliant, most satisfying, really most brilliant contribution of so many teachers, especially the one you're talking about, brilliant work of Abraham Hicks. And there's been so much of that movement coming through on the other side as well. Not only how to get to the steady, but how to apply that steady into your next question and into your next question, into your next question, because there is inevitable opportunity. It is inevitable for you that new questions will be coming through, that new variety observation will be coming through, that you will be making choices about what is the next thing you want to give attention to, or next interaction with someone. You will continuously continue to observe variety, and because of that, you will continuously be moving between question answer, negative and positive emotion, discomfort, comfort, between love, ease, and steadiness, and some kind of a wobble, or what you might call resistance. In other words, what we are saying is be aware to any of those emotions that are coming through, but look from the place that all of them have equal value and that none of them are more important than another in a place of understanding the creation, in the place of you finding the balanced experience. Because if you get to glorify even one emotion over another, then you go and identify yourself with an emotion, then you go and try to hold on with that emotion to identify yourself, and then you actually introduce that which is resistance more often than not. Now, this does not mean experience equally good or bad. This does not mean experience predominantly negative emotion over the positive. What we're saying is allow yourself to see the equal value. And in seeing the equal value, then, only then, you're going to be able to choose how long you stay in each of those emotions. In other words, you will be beyond them, guiding how long you stay in any of those emotions, and therefore none of those emotions will be running you, like none of those mind intellectual things will be running you, nor the physical activity of your body. And so that is that next thing and the next thing and the next thing that we're talking about. Get to the place to see what feels good. Get to the place to allow yourself to experience it. And then when it's time for you to look into something else, do not have it only for others, from interaction to catch you off guard, for you to feel discomfort to ask the question, but you be the one inviting the new desire. You be the one inviting the new question. And so we started recently saying that this will be the process. you get to the place of some kind of question, discomfort, and then you find through the tools of steadiness whereas is that appreciation or quieting the mind, meditation, physical activity, whatever gets you to get your mind off of that feeling and you get to the place of steady. So once you do get to the place of steady, what do? You bask in it. You enjoy it, but you do not try to stretch it longer than its course at that particular moment, knowing that no matter what question comes next, there will always be an opportunity for you to apply that tool or any tool that you have at hand, those tools consistently changing because you always want to experience something new. There is infinite ways, infinite tools you can use to get to the place of steady. And then again, from the place of steady, not holding on to try to squeeze it or milk it or stretch it for longer than it needs to be. In other words, those experiences, you allowed to be in them, knowing that you can always get there. And since you know that you can always get there, then you start becoming a little bit sort of a troublemaker on this other side of the creation process, because you say, I understand how lovely and beautiful this feeling is. I understand that I got here on purpose because there was something that caused some kind of a question. I shifted the flashlight of my attention to the other place. That's what got me to be steady. And now, when I feel so steady from this empowered place, now is the time for me to see when am I ready to go and open the door for new question to come through. And you will know exactly what it is. If you listen on it, if you're not trying to hold on to the positive feeling you're having, you will be the one starting to see, what can I give attention to now? What can I give attention to now that can cause new curiosity to be born, the new discovery of the new question? And when you go about that, variety that you observe can never overwhelm you. The variety you're observing can never be putting you in a discomforting place for too much. It can never bring you to the place where you feel like observing variety provides you with problems, but rather curiosity about formulating the questions, and then your whole process becomes softer and you can quickly shift your flashlight of attention from the question part to answer part to tipping point between question and answer to tipping point between answer and question, all of the parts of that being equally important and equally beneficial for the whole experience. And that is the time when you do not really make the big deal out of one towards the another one, because everything starts feeling satisfying. Even the process of discomfort becomes satisfying because you know how short or long you can stay there based off of your flashlight of attention.
Okay, so are you saying that I'm in charge of the discomfort? Because at the moment I'm thinking how I want to make this discomfort disappear.
We understand that you want to make the discomfort disappear, but in trying to make discomfort disappear forever, you're trying to say, I want variety to disappear. I want differences to disappear. I want everything that's different for what I like to disappear. And therefore, first, even if you wanted to, that's impossible. But let's imagine for a moment, let us have you to try to imagine for a moment that there is no variety, that everybody's really together doing the same thing or being all satisfied and easy about it, not causing each other to ask any questions. In other words, you would be so bored over minutes, not even hours, not even the days of time, that you would cease to exist, because variety is the only thing that keeps eternity eternal, because there is variety, there is reflection coming back to you. There is reflection at all times coming back to you, you seeing things from different angle. This person tells you something, that is you telling yourself something. This other person tells you something nice, beautiful reflection back to you. In other words, brings you back to the place of steady and answer. And then some other reflection, some other person reflects something discomforting to you. Well, there is a generating of new desire, of the new clear wanting, equally important, because without that there is no dance. Without the balance between that, which you can even see in the structure of the atom of every single every single cell in the universe, all of them having this beautiful balance between the proton and neutron and electron, and all of them dancing together, finding this creation dance at all times, being balanced, being balanced, being balanced consistently. Because of that variety, because there is a comfort and discomfort part dancing together, keeping the movement so steady that balance is always there, even when you do not see it. In other words, you then choose to experience, are you focused mostly on the negative electrons or positive protons, or sometimes you feel neutral and beyond all of it while enjoying all of the creation.
Okay, I like that. And I like how you use dance as an analogy for it. So now I need to ask, when the dance partners, one side is operating on fear because if they get this thing, if they take this step, they will die. Whereas the other one, if they don't take the step, they will die. And both have this fear of their physical life ending. And so they're not happy with this dance anymore. And it's becoming more of a fight rather than a dance. It's more of a struggle between the two of them.
That's usually why those atoms do not want to give attention to each other at that moment. In other words, there is too much focus quite often in that situation, and that's why they cover each other as a mirror of reflection, either for some time or for the longer time. But it's not really about that. It is about finding that any mirror that you have, and this is going to answer your question, what is it for you to do in order to find more of this balance and steadiness? Allowing yourself that your attention and focus is not always active. In other words, when you're in a resting place or sleeping, your focus is softer, but even in your wake time, sometimes in your sleep, you might even have some information coming through you when it comes to the sleep. In other words, some thoughts are roaming around there. They're not as active, but there still can be roaming around there. But when you consciously get into the place of restfulness and ease, either because you had physical activity and now your body really is so engaged in the movement that it does not allow your mind to overproduce stimulation, and then your intellect sometimes, when you turn everything off, in other words, and you do not use your mind for a certain amount of time, where your emotions are a little bit softer, you get to the place where you can unfocus. In other words, is that appreciation, meditation, physical activity? When you tune out the world, when you soften up the sharpness of your thought, when you get to that place in the process of unfocusing, that's why we call that wider and wider and wider and wider and wider perspective. When you get to develop the skill to get to that place several times throughout the day, not for too long, but several times throughout the day, when you create the skill that you can do that within the minutes, sometimes maybe a little longer, sometimes not, but when you get to that place of wider perspective, even a few times shortly throughout the day, your focus time becomes so much more balanced that even that person that it seemed was pulling in a completely different direction, because you pulled up to the wider perspective, you've experienced oneness with everyone else. And so when you get reminded, when you remind yourself through the process of unfocusing how everything is reflection of you, and this other person is nothing different than you, and that everything and everyone is reflection of what you have going on in your own question answer dance, then you stop blaming others, then you start looking too much about differences being detrimental for your experience of communicating or relationships, but then you understand that they're the basis of it, because that variety always sparks desire.
How can I make myself not care so much about what the other person or the others?
You cannot not care what the others are thinking in that sense, unless you do it on a temporary basis. In other words, if you feel overwhelmed, if you feel there is a negative emotion, you cover the mirror and you say, I do not care. But eventually it will come around, because you will always care about the reflection of you. It has nothing to do with them. It has nothing to do with them. You will always care about what comes back to you as a reflection. Because without reflections of others, you would cease to exist. you can really be sure that without communication or without other people around you, you would cease to exist. You would cease to exist without having some kind of feedback to continually allow you to experience that which already happened in a process of expansion.
Right, thank you. That was very clear. I got that. One last question, please. Sorry, guys. I want to feel my connection with Source.
There is nothing for you to feel because there is no for you to go into being connected and not. You're consistently there. You always have connection. You don't have anything to do. There is no separation between you and the Source. Source, that which you call Source, is majority, 99.99999% of every particle of the universe, including every particle of every cell in your body. And so it's safe to say that you are already majorly made out of that which you call God.
Okay, but when I was a little girl, I had more certainty that I'm connected to something divine and that I could create anything I want. And
that lies. We're playing a little bit with semantics here with you, but in that awareness that you were connected more. In other words, you were equally connected then and now. But what you're talking about, where your flashlight of attention was going. As you were younger, your flashlight of attention was going left and right and left and right. You were daydreaming, you were having fun at the river, you were hanging out with your friends. There was nothing to worry you. In other words, your focus was not trained enough. And then you got trained and stretched your focus so much so. You stretched your focus so much so that you forgot the process of unfocusing that was so natural to you. We like to say in this way so you can understand that when you're born, you're mostly unfocused. As a baby, you sleep a lot, you go in and out of your dreams, you're formulating your focus. And then only at some point you start getting more and more focused. When you get into your high schools and your colleges or spending a lot of time in focusing outwards, you're stretching the limits of your focus. And sometimes you go so much so into that focus place that you forget that you're majorly this, which is everything that exists perspective. And so what ended up happening is you got so excited about your new experience in this physical iteration. You got so excited about the shape of that which is your physicality that holds all of this majorly God, divine part of you, and you wanted to explore it. And you wanted to explore it so much so that sometimes your flashlight of attention would be only in that perspective of focus and not so much in the place of unfocus. We understand. For as long as you're physically focused with your physical focus in the physical environment, you will want to have most of your attention there. All we are saying is give yourself a little bit of break from that so you can pull to the wider perspective. So your next set of the focus time becomes even more efficient, it becomes more satisfying, becomes really you looking to be so curious and so troublemaker that you cannot wait to continue asking more questions.
So how do I quiet my mind so that I can hear Source more? That I can hear the higher self more?
There is nothing lower and higher when it comes to this. What we want to offer you is an opportunity to integrate all of these things you've opened up right now. There's been a lot of things that you've opened up in this conversation, and we will allow you to integrate everything you've heard, because in this process of unfocusing, you're not meeting it as a destination. The process of unfocusing and decision about process of unfocusing is the starting point that would lead you to the right people, to the right processes, to the right tools to develop to quiet more and more your mind. All it takes is the awareness that you now have in order to be in discovery of it. If there was a magic formula for each focusing mechanism to get to that, everyone would subscribe to it and everybody would be the same and eternity would cease to exist. And since that cannot be the case because of so much variety, in other words, so many other tools, finding the tools, looking how to get to the place where there is not so many thoughts around in order for you to balance all of your faculties of life becomes one of the most exciting and important discoveries of your physical experience.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was very exciting. I felt the excitement of Weola there. Thank you. I am complete.
Really, really excellent start to this broadcast. Go ahead. We're ready for more.
Hi, Weola. Firstly, is Weola speaking quicker than normal the last couple of sessions? And if not, why am I perceiving that to be so?
We told you that today will be a lot more movement coming through as your questions are bringing this to more and more speed. In other words, your clarity for information to come through, your resonance with the things is all the movement. It's always based off of the feedback. As we always say, there is no one guiding these reflections but you. And so the speed of how quickly or slowly information comes through is irrelevant from this wider perspective of no time. It is relevant only for you based off of your resonance, clarity, and desire of how quickly you want to receive the next level, the next layer, even better, of awareness.
So what I wanted to talk about was throwing the cover over things and inclusion, because I've been having a bit of a tussle question dance about, so if I'm in a group, for example, that used to feel really good and then it doesn't feel, it's not as enjoyable anymore, and
Why?
why is it not as enjoyable?
Yes, why is it not enjoyable?
I don't know. I used to feel inspired by all the things, the posts and what people were sharing, and now when I look at them, I'm not inspired at all. I'm just thinking I'm in the wrong place.
And so this reflection may have had impact on you at some point, and now this particular mirror does not have to be that for you. But if you're looking into these outside reflections to get you from the next one place to another place to another place, you can look at them as tools. In other words, when something is or was a satisfying tool that you had, and you really were under impression, or you knew that this was you reflecting back to you, at that point, that inclusion stays like that, and all you would be able to see, even if you don't interact with this group anymore, would be immense amount of gratitude, even though you do not interact with that. In other words, if the content coming through from the outside used to reflect positive and not so positive, is bringing you, in other words, to see how steady you are on that topic. It used to be a tool for you to get to steady, and now it's a tool for you to practice how to apply your steady.
Okay, good. And that was my question. My question was, do I leave the group or do I stay?
Only if you do not want more expansion, you leave the group. In other words, only if this causes you to go back into the place of question, you cover the group for some time. But if you're steady, if you feel the gratitude of this group getting you to that place, now you can go ahead and apply that, and apply that, and apply that, and all you will see. In other words, this is what we mean by looking for trouble. We're going to be as clear as possible. This is a brilliant example you're bringing. You get to experience something that got you to the place of steady. And now you might feel that you're steadier. And this looks really like peanut gallery kind of experience compared to where you're at. But this, at some point, you were in that peanut gallery too. In other words, at some point in time, whether you can remember it or not, whether it was while you were in this group or before, you were there too. You might not be consciously aware of it, but you've been in that place at some point too. And now you have an opportunity to include the peanut gallery by applying your steadiness to it by saying, I really appreciate what this group has done for me. And while I see that I moved in a different direction, not comparing myself, am I in a better place or more steady or less steady? I'm not going to compare that. Now I get to apply my steady. I'm so satisfied that this group got me to be steady. I'm so appreciative of how important this was part of my experience, how uplifting it was, how satisfying it was. And even though some things may have changed, even though it might be the same content and me different, then content doesn't resonate with me. Or I am the same, but the content changes reflection. I have new opportunity to learn. Or I changed and the content changed altogether in a different directions. That means more opportunity for expansion, more opportunity to experience and apply my steadiness. In other words, steadier you get, more trouble you're looking for, because there is more satisfaction and new layers of inclusion you can get to experience. And so these stubborn mirrors, everything that you make into an important relationship by the consistency of your attention to it, allows you to really measure things up. This is why Kosta loves so much to come back home. This is why Kosta loves that he's now sitting to broadcast from the same childhood room he was born in. In other words, his father pretty much got here at the age of 1 or 2. They were the first owners of this apartment. He will never, for the rest of this physical iteration, not own this apartment, because it's really bringing so many opportunities for measurement and looking for trouble. His drawer full of memories from childhood and from all of these things that can continuously come through, and where he can find newer resonance. In other words, it's easy to keep the steady and to go into the place of snacking yourself into steady, while covering this mirror and replacing it with this one, covering with this mirror and replacing it with this one, because it always takes time. When you're so quickly covering the mirrors, there is a gap until you realize that what's coming through the new mirror is exactly the same thing that you covered on the other side. And therefore, there is no mirror that you can cover forever where it's not going to come in this or another shape through something or someone else. It will still end up showing up. So understanding that even though this mirror you want to cover for a moment or two, at some point you're better off applying your steady to it and keeping your steady as your inclusiveness grows, because it is first and foremost part of your own spiritual process.
That's so good. And so then what I'm thinking is I could almost just the things that I have in my life at the moment, I could just keep those things forever and not introduce anything new, because I can have new in all of those things.
Or you can continue finding resonance with everything that's familiar to you, and as you're finding resonance with them, then you go continuously looking for trouble. In other words, new mirrors coming to you are for two reasons. One reason being that you want to cover some and they keep popping up in a new shape and form, or that you're so steady with all the mirrors that you want to put more of them in front of you and take completely two new journeys and new opportunities. This is why you see successful people taking so much on them, taking so many projects on them, because they're really done with all the nonsense of their own experiences they've had. In other words, they found so much steadiness about it, they're now continuously going to look for trouble. And then there are some that might feel that success in a different way, but they're just recycling and exchanging, covering this mirror and opening it up, just trying to fool themselves that it's something different while it's not.
Well, there's a lot there. Thank you so much. That's brilliant.
Everything that you do at all times, everything that you do at all times is to bring you to the more awareness of this wider perspective of you, because that is the majority of it. You see, sometimes you can see how stuck sometimes you are in physicality, because it is really so real and so exciting to focus and to experience variety. All it is to take a little wider perspective once in a while, so you can see more and more layers of that 99.99999 infinite percent of that which is wider perspective, and therefore experience more and more and more and more and more and more and more inclusion. So much so inclusion that you can really get to the place of seeing it all at the same time.
So good, thank you so much.
Really, really, really brilliant conversations. Go ahead, we're ready for more.
So actually, I have a question about the question, and I'm not sure how to formulate the question about the question, but that goes something like, so you talk about the question answer dance. For some reason, the part of the answer, and when we ask, the answer is simultaneously created, and the whole creation process, the awareness about that feels pretty clear. But then sometimes when I think about the question part, which is when we observe variety, what does it mean, the question? Like, what do we ask? You know, sometimes I want to know, like, what do I... Like,
what you're really asking is, here is this variety, I'm experiencing some discomfort, or I'm experiencing some curiosity. What is the new thing I want to discover? That's what you're asking. You are aware, not clearly. Sometimes you can get there clearly. There is some discomfort, there is the question, I brought this on me, or it startled me. I know there is the value in this. Because there is the value in this, I know that there is an answer to it. So what I'm asking now is to release this wanting of that which is clarity of desire. I want to release the wanting to see the answer immediately. That is what the question is. Releasing the necessity to see it in right now, because what you're always looking for is discovery in the whole ride. You're consistently looking to be more conscious in the process, more conscious in the now, more conscious in the now, more conscious in the now. That is the eagerness that feels like it's more and more and more within you. You want to be aware so much so in the moment, so still while moving with lightning speed, because that's the only time you can really experience and include more into your experience, more dimensions, more layers of awareness.
So that's so fun. So I'm basically, when you refer to a question, I'm basically asking the clarity of what is that desire that I'm creating.
You're asking, in a process of formulating questions, you want to see what is the starting and ending point at the same time. In other words, you formulate the desire, which means your discovery of that desire starts because you know the desire is already there.
Yes, thank you so much.
Really, really brilliant conversations with a lot of speed today. Go ahead.
Hi Weola, it's me again. I have another question. It touches on the thing that you said earlier about when we sleep, our thoughts are softer. When we sleep and we dream, who is creating that dream? Are we still creating that dream? That what happens in our dream?
Who do you think would be the other candidate for that? Who would qualify to bring anything into your reality but you? Who would pass the test? Who would you let do that for you if you had an option?
If we can do that in our dream, why can't we do that in our waking moments? Why can't we create the creations that we have in our dream, which sometimes are better than our waking moments?
Well, sometimes your dreams are satisfying and better than your reality, but they can also be a nightmare. In other words, there is no difference when it comes to your dream. We're just asking you to see, you're still talking a little bit about this separation, about you from this place of focus and someone else sitting somewhere directing everything that's happening. In other words, even if that was the case, which is not, they would have done an amazing job into deceiving you that it's all you, because you really are at all times having the opportunity to experience. In other words, there's no conspiracy here, only variety of perspectives, and you allowing yourself to let go into more than that 0.000000001 of your experience, which is your focus.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hi. So I wanted to ask some more clarifying questions. I asked you about living beyond the emotions the other day, and asked about living within discomfort and finding ways to notice the emotion and live beyond that. And you discussed about well, I don't fully remember, but I feel like I'm ready to hear more about it, because at one point you had asked me something of like, was I letting the discomfort become more, or was I letting it release a little bit more? And I asked or mentioned that what comes to my mind was to soothe it, but that didn't feel accurate, and you confirmed that that's not the accurate thing. And I heard what you said, but I feel like I can hear more about that, because I'm really wanting to apply this living beyond emotions in a very deep way.
So in order for you to really see it, let's move it from the place of concept into an example. Be as specific as you can.
Okay, so I'm going through a current scenario that is new to me. And so there are challenging moments and reflections that are coming through.
Who do you think is putting those challenging moments and situations there?
Say that one more time.
Who do you think is putting those challenging situations in front of you?
Me, absolutely.
So are you aware that you're doing that? Or are you aware that this is coming in as a startled experience? Or it's both?
It's both. It's both, for sure. Because I thought that I had worked through so many of the things that are reflecting back to me. But it's very apparent to me that I still have a lot of things to work through, which is okay. Like, I'm loving, oh, yes, okay. So I'm loving that it's this is so good. I'm loving that it's reflecting to me, because it's showing me something that I didn't know I had to work through. So what a beautiful opportunity and blessing that it is reflecting back to me, and it's still challenging that it's reflecting to me.
Well, there is still a little bit of that feeling of separation, so we'll take it further with you. From that place of one that you're experiencing, you will never feel like that it's too troubling for you, because you will know that it's you. It is not reflection of you, it is you from a different angle. In other words, first we get you to understand that so many teachers got you to understand that there is more to you than your physical focus. You understand that there is this different dimension of you beyond your mind, your body, your emotions, even your physical life energies, that there is this wider perspective of you. You call it differently: universe, source, divine, God. And then once you understand that aspect, then you start moving in a different direction from it. In other words, you start moving towards that place of steady in a more particular and more deliberate and more purposeful way at that point. And then, at some point, you started getting into some trouble. You started understanding that it is not only you and someone else reflecting back to you, and you're choosing who are you giving your attention to. That is only to get you to understand that there is really more than just the negative or question dance, but that you can choose to move from positive to negative. In other words, when you hear it every single time, cover this mirror, or don't pay attention what they say, they do not really mean anything. In other words, that doesn't mean anything. You have to bring things to you. That means someone bringing you to the place of self for you to understand that you have control. But once you start having that control, that you've developed the muscle of covering all of those mirrors, well, now is the time for you to start opening up those mirrors and see, because you understand that those reflections are beneficial to you. So first you understand that those reflections are beneficial to you, but you still feel like it's somebody else. In other words, this is my parent, or this is my partner, or this is my child, or this is my friend. I see the value of this reflection of these other people other than me. And that's why you cannot stay there for too long. In other words, you're eager to see more of the inclusiveness. So then you start saying, well, these are reflection of me coming from me, sometimes on purpose, where I'm the one opening the door from the place of answer to the tipping point, and I'm the opening the door for curiosity. And sometimes I'm startled by it. Well, we want to bring it to another dimension for you, and that is that you set yourself as a surprise, startled question too, as much as you do by opening the door. You just love to mix it up. It is all you, because from the wider perspective, you're really looking for trouble. You're looking for variety. You're looking to spice it up. You're looking to have as many things to stimulate your focus so you can enjoy the process of unfocusing, receiving that which you got to be your desire because of the focus, and allow that unfocusing to gradually or sometimes abruptly goes back into the focus. That's all it is. You're playing all of the parts of this game. You're just so good at it sometimes that you might feel there is someone else too.
Okay, that is amazing. Thank you.
Really, really excellent conversations. There will be no break today. We're feeling eager to go for as long as you have questions. Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if there is, guys, do you have any other questions today?
I can ask one. Okay, go ahead.
Please, Ginita.
Okay. I love you so much too. Oh my gosh. Okay. So a question that popped into my head yesterday and this morning was, a couple years ago, I found these two Abraham Hicks books that were like the very, very, very first two published. They're not even like in circulation anymore. I like bought them used on Amazon. And in reading one of them, it was filled with a lot of stuff about like kind of talking about some big changes that are going to be happening on Earth, and like catastrophic natural events like earthquakes and stuff, and kind of talking about like preparing for that. And you know, it just doesn't resonate with me too much, and I don't really hear them talking about that so much anymore. But what happened yesterday was I was chatting with a friend, and she's like, oh, you should check out this lady on YouTube. She's a hypnotherapist and takes her clients really, really deep in hypnosis and asks them different questions. And they all keep coming up with these scenarios where they're talking about some big worldwide event that's going to happen. And it's about, I don't know, all of this stuff. And again, there's kinds of stuff in there of like kind of warning people, like, make sure you've got lots of food and this, that, and the other. And I don't know, a lot of that stuff kind of turns me off. Because I just feel like as I swim in my knowledge of what I know, like I don't have to prepare for stuff like that. I'll just be, if anything quote unquote bad or catastrophic were to happen, that I'm just going to be so tapped into my guidance that I'm not going to need to prepare ahead of time for anything like that. Can you tell me more about, it's just interesting though that like Abraham Hicks, you know, because I trust so much about what they say. Like, what is that about when we receive that kind of guidance from non-physical?
Well, there is so much potential at all times for the focus to go in different directions. Everything that you're experiencing cumulatively accumulated in your focus from so many is coming from that experience. It's like so many, infinite, millions, billions of cameras on the same topic, giving a different perspective and therefore continuing to mold that experience. It is nothing else but the potential that can happen. In other words, the calendar is about catastrophes of the planetary size or what happens on the earth. In other words, by listening and by seeing, you can see that things are shifting, things are completely changing. In other words, those huge tectonic experiences for some are happening maybe even every day. For some, those have been happening maybe every year. For some, they have never happened and they never will. In other words, there's so many different places that you can experience these things from. Even if you ask anyone in this current pandemic, that will be one of the things. In other words, some found ease about it. There is many that have never even heard about any of this. They're not even aware of these things in certain places. In other words, as your planet gets to be more and more connected with instant processes and messaging and exchanging of information, is becoming less and less possible or probable to happen. But there are so many that can find their resonance in their balance, where regardless of what they give attention to, they still continue keeping their balance, knowing that their experience is really moment by moment by moment by moment by moment. And once you're in that place, even the time starts becoming irrelevant, because your satisfaction in those times of the experience is so big, so blissful, so easy, so steady, that really everything, when it comes to those potentials, you can choose how to see it and from which angle to see it. You can see every potential negative problem, emotion, or even catastrophe or positive experience to be always only as a springboard into your experience, because it's not really about the destination of either direction ever. It's always about moving in your creation and how easy you stand by observing all of them, because you can get to the place to choose how long you stay in each of them, and you can get to choose that even if sometimes you put your flashlight of attention on autopilot, wherever it lands, you can be good for at least a certain amount of time.
Awesome. I have another question. It's okay. It's totally unrelated. Well, I'm sure it's related in some way. But so I've got this fairly new client. We've seen each other a couple times now, and he has background in like software engineering. So he even says like, I like to ask a lot of questions, and his intellectual mind gets really wanting to know more about this stuff. But it's kind of like, you and I talked privately about some people that want to use me as like a Google resource of like, just get these like answers that they can find by reading Abraham Hicks books, rather than actually using the session to go through a calibration process for him to like really know it on a deep visceral level. And so, as I think about having my third session with him this week, I got a little bit in my head of like, maybe being a little bit more kind of authoritative in a way in the beginning of the session of like, let's just table those questions and let's get right into the process. But there's a part of me that worries like he's going to be turned off by me just saying I'm not going to answer these questions. It's almost like I think about it, it's like if you go to a gym and you're meeting with a personal trainer and you spend the first half an hour asking about the physiology of the body and why workouts are good rather than actually working out. So can you give me some guidance on how to best interact with this client in a way that's not going to like rub them the wrong way, but still like get them into these processes and letting go of those questions and this analytical mind getting in the way?
Well, your analytical mind is getting in the way. You're analyzing all these situations or these potentials or these outcomes that come through. All you have to do is be steady enough that it does not matter if your question or answer for this person, knowing that equally it's valuable. So what's going to happen if this person gets startled? So what's going to happen if this person is going to have huge question mark on their face? So what's going to happen if they're going to be so really for a moment even confused? There is really equal value in that when you're allowing someone to be that steady guidance for them. We're not saying do this and give this metaphysical slap in their face about you wanting to guide them in that place or being aggressive about it. But what we want to say is that you, in your place of steady, understanding that you're a reflection of someone. We understand often student He's looking for a reflection that it's based in answers in all times. And what kind of teacher can be a brilliant, masterful teacher if at all times is just providing with the study of an answers and not checking in where the person that they're guiding is in the process. In other words, you're seeing where this person is in the process. All you have to stand is in the place of study. If from the place of study you offer the guidance, that which is you guiding them to go and actually ask the question or go to focus on a process will never come across as authority or something mandatory or something that they do not want to. Actually, they would do it gladly.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, that's lovely. Thank you.
In other words, if your awareness is coming from the place of inclusion and you say, I want to get you to experience more inclusion, you've been sifting and sorting over here. I wanted to see for how long you've been standing there. I saw that your flashlight of attention is in this curious, inquisitive research state. And while that will always be the case, let's start balancing our sessions by you having some research and then some process, and some research and some process. Because I can get you to experience more and more and more process. I'm not going to expect from you to switch from massive questions and research to massive process, but my goal is ultimately there, that you feel that the research and the process are blending in together, because that's how you get to study.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you.
Really, really, really extremely satisfying conversations today. Go ahead.
Hi, Weola. Yeah, I feel like this one might not be so satisfying, but I'm curious, why do I blink so much? I seem to blink a lot more than other people, and I'm actually getting quite...
Because you're questioning yourself the same way as you were questioning that this question might be satisfying. In other words, why would this question be less satisfying than any other question? Is because you're blinking too much. Well, you're blinking too much because you're second guessing, and then you're second guessing because you're blinking so much, and so on and so on and so on. In other words, this loop that you get in sometimes with too many questions processing, too much research, you might want to balance that out. In other words, a lot of energy coming through with you sometimes allows for you to really process way too much. In other words, so much thinking happening in order for you to be really allowing yourself to release that in a sense of ease. Kosta at some point, especially while he dances and while he was processing, he could see how relaxed he is based off of how much he would blink throughout the dance. Sometimes he would blink so much so that his eyeballs were hurting. So much so, really following this rhythm with his eyes. Sometimes somebody would notice that when he would focus so much, when he would try to isolate the feeling, when he would try to really think himself into transformation of his body position, where you cannot do that. You can just get tired and your eyeballs will tell you that. So just be more easy on your intellect when you feel that, and use that as a feedback of your body saying, a little more balance, please.
To go and quiet my mind.
That is time for you to soften up, because those things you're thinking about will be there. There's no really reason for you ever to worry that you're not going to go back to figure it out. You just want to cut yourself some slack for a moment and charge up so you can really look into it. So you can really look into it by keeping your eyes open and not blinking.
Thank you.
Really good. Really, really, really excellent conversation. Go ahead.
Hi, Weola. I want to expand on the troublemaker concept that you brought up.
Are you ready to be one?
I was a troublemaker growing up. Even though I knew I was going to be physically punished for my choices, I did it anyway.
So you were excited to go and to explore. You were excited to go and push the buttons. You were excited to go and poke, because you were more balanced at that time about knowing that you can go and daydream, that you can go and unfocus, that you can go and have time, that you can go and forget about poking until you remind yourself that the poking is a fun game. So what happened?
That's what I want to know, because I am now cautious about everything that I do.
Because you felt at some point you continued focusing more and you dropped the focus on that unfocusing part of the game, and then you stirred it up, and then you went back and found your balance by remembering that the positive, predominantly positive emotion experience is possible, and not possible then living it. But then you started holding on to that emotion a little too much because you stretched your focus too much and you tried to remember the feeling. Now, we did not say this way before. You cannot remember the feeling. Your feeling is at all the times new. You cannot intellectually remember the feeling. You can just have sensation in the now, in the now, in the now. So you trying to hold on to the positive emotion, trying to remember that so you can get there more often, trying to bottle it, put it in your back pocket for the rainy days. It does not work like that. You experience positive emotion and then you allow it. You allow yourself to be the troublemaker so you can feel more positive emotion, and then you allow it to be troublemaker so you feel positive emotion. Anyways, you're going to get into some trouble, whether you consciously put it through or you unconsciously put it through.
Is it possible that I have developed a fear of making trouble?
It is possible that you in your place of predominantly positive, wider perspective, growing up into the more question, coming back to the balance towards the answer or the positive emotion again, you felt I used to have it, and then now I did not have it because I was focused, and now I'm trying to find the balance. Oh, here it is. Here is this positive emotion. Let me hold on to it, thinking that you're in a positive emotion, but rather introducing resistance. In other words, you want to be honest with yourself where you are at the moment and act accordingly, either to go back to steady or apply the steady to the new question, but not pretending that you're feeling great and that you're in a positive emotion when you're holding on, cringing and clinging for dear life of that positive emotion, not knowing when it's going to come next time. If you've experienced positive emotion even one time, and you experience it every day, we know. If you experienced even better than in a conscious way, which more and more you get to experience even once, then you can apply it again, which means if you've gotten to it at some point, you can go there and then beyond. You can go there and then beyond. Actually, you can never go back there, because every positive emotion you experience next time and the next time and the next time is in a completely different, wider, infinitely changed, reconfigured place. So much so that it always feels like more.
Okay. So I left my job 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And I have been trying to build a business for myself from home. And I've been kind of, what you said, pretending that everything is okay. And but I can't seem to move my business forward. I can't seem to...
That is because you're trying to build a business. You have not been trying to build a business. You've been building the business. In other words, you've been building the business. Call it whichever way it is. Now, you might not want to call it a business because you measure too much with what the business is supposed to be and how it is supposed to be. Kosta and Armand have been doing this in early stages of this experience because they really felt this flow within the 6 weeks of last year. They started broadcasting. They decided to start sharing this not only with the close friends, but to open it up for the public. In other words, the knowing that this will be one of the main things, or one of the things that will majorly be part of their experience, was so exciting that they immediately wanted to drop everything else and really start having that which you call business, or live fully from this experience. Well, first of all, that was not really as easy to find at that moment because they were still interested in so many other things. Kosta in dancing, Armand in the magazine, Armand in design, Kosta in creating another program, playing different sports, socializing with their friends, wanting to do so many other things. So they were looking for more and more and more and more balance. If you were to ask them, they still to this day do not really consider, because they stopped considering what is considered business, and they just allow the abundance to come through from anything they give attention to. And so be it the dancing, so be it the program, so be it design, so be it these experiences, they feel really comfortable and exciting people choosing how much to contribute for something like this based off of how abundant they feel. This is how comfortable they feel about this being business, that they don't even call it a business. They stopped measuring as much as they can with their, like yours, really strong intellectual part about measuring, because they're still asking questions that will continue to ask questions for the rest of their physical iterations about anything they give attention to, as well as you will, because you care about the experience, you care about the expansion, you care about this giving you satisfaction. If you were not to care about it, you would not measure. You just want to find the balance in how much you measure and how much you pull back from the place to receive the benefit of that which you've measured.
Thank you. Thank you. That was satisfying. Thank you.
Go ahead. We'll take more questions if there are some.
All right. So, why am I so sensitive to the mirror reflection?
Because you still do not believe that that's you.
Say that again?
Because you still do not believe that that is you.
But if I didn't believe it, why would I be so sensitive to it?
Because you're excited to include more. Because you're always looking to include more. All of your desires are to include more of that wider perspective flowing through you, finding expressions in anything you give attention to. And so you're at all times will be eager for the next step and for the next step and for the next step in your evolution.
Well, yeah, I still am not quite.
So just walk us through it. Walk us through it. Where are you at the moment? So you know that you have physical focus. You know that there is awareness in the process of unfocusing. You know that there is other people from their place of self. But then you know that when everyone zooms out or pulls out in a wider perspective, everyone is one. And so, where are you in understanding all of this? What part of that resonates and what doesn't resonate with you? Honest answer will allow you to see what is the springboard for the next layer of your understanding.
Well, it feels like that is, I totally get that, the fact that we're all one, and that that doesn't seem to be an issue to me. I can get that, but I feel so easily embarrassed, like even asking a question, or just I think I have this fear, like, oh, I don't want to see what I get back because it's going to make me very uncomfortable. And I've had it my whole life.
So, would you, if you know, what's really lies down in the foundation of this is for you, how can I, if this mirror reflection comes back to me, is something less than satisfying, why would I even do that to myself? Why would I bring myself this discomforting reflection back? Why would I bring myself focus on more variety? Why would I be asking more questions? That is really what you're saying. And what you're saying is you still might be at the place where you might started moving in a direction and sensing, but looking to find more resonance where this is clear to you that all of it is you and that all of it is valuable to you. In other words, what you might be seeing is the difference between the value of the positive and negative emotion. In other words, where you feel like the ultimate goal of experiencing physicality is to have only positive emotion, or to be the place of ease or unfocused at all times. And that is never really truly the case. So when you understand that you do not want to cling on to this positive emotion, you'll be okay to see what's reflection, because that reflection will get you back to more juicy, milking, sometimes stretching to more satisfying experience kind of steady.
Okay, that makes total sense, and I do like that. I see it's like, yeah, having that bit of discomfort and those questions, and then as I relax back in, it's like, yeah, I can totally see how that is necessary. But what I experienced.
So why are you so eager to get rid of from this sensitivity, even in anticipating something coming back?
Too much. It seems too much. I like so much your ideas of the flash flood of attention and being able to balance it out and choosing how long I stay in something. It's like, I love that idea. It's like, oh, thank God.
And you can get there only, if you release the desire only that to be your experience. In other words, when you release that that's the only way, in other words, you seem to be moving from one ultimate to other ultimate way of living. And what we're saying, you're always going to end up tricking yourself, meaning you're going to trick yourself into getting some reflections to be surprise and delight, and to be sometimes too much. And then you're going to get yourself to this conscious place of opening the door. And that conscious way of opening the door might become and can become and has the full potential to become your predominant experience. But if you want to get there, you have to drop this whole thing of being really bothered or embarrassed if you do not have that right now. In other words, that's what it is, this measurement of, I know this is possible, why am I not there yet? Do I deserve to be there? If I deserve, why am I not there at this moment? Why is not everyone there at this moment? In other words, you have an opportunity with anything you give your attention to find a new layer and the new layer and the new layer. In other words, you're so ahead of your own game of creation when you get to the place of understanding to be in the now and celebrate everything with the equal satisfaction.
Okay, that makes total sense. It really does. I want to keep going here because I just
keep going.
Feel like there's something, and maybe I just have a much more extreme reaction to things. But and thinking of your concept of covering the mirror, I think, well, maybe I just have a harder time covering the mirror than other people, because I feel like when I get a reflection back, meaning like I can sort of see how I seem to somebody else, what their response is to me. It's like, it's so like, oh my God, that's how they see me. It's like, it seems to have...
Well, you're still bringing this to the place, if you're at the place of this is how they see me, then it's hard for you to cover the mirror because the ball is not in your court.
Okay.
But when you go to see it, that this is me throwing this at me, now this is a totally different game. This is me reflecting back to me.
I understand that. What am I doing? Why, what am I throwing them? I'm totally confused about that then, because I can see, but it's sort of like, it's a shock. It's like, this is like somebody's reaction to me is a shock. It's like, what am I doing to myself? What's that telling me? What's that?
Well, this is the thing. You're trying to see the value of this in the moment when value is created, and you cannot have that. Because by focusing too much on why am I doing this and why is this coming right now, what you're asking is, I want to know the value now. And you want to know the value in the moment of getting the clarity of the questions. You can only see the value when you get to the answer, and then you see it all in retrospect, how it all beautifully unfolded to you. So the way you go about this is, I understand that this is someone else in a place of self. I know it's reflection of me. If I really am honest with myself and now steady enough to see inclusion, this is me throwing something at me. In other words, I've chosen either directly or I decided to trick myself into being surprised by this question. And so I allow myself to now see that I'm choosing how long I stay there. But I'm not going to look for the value. I'm not going to look for what the value is and why is this happening. I know there is the value, and I don't care to see it right now because I'm aware that there is a value. And in doing that, you shift yourself towards discovery, and the answer comes clearer to you. And when you get the answer, if you're really honest to yourself, when you get the answer at all times, you also have the clarity about when that answer was hatched. In other words, when was that question? And that is the time for you to see, if you choose to see it, if that matters to you, the steps of how you got there. And that's when you remember that was the value of that question that happened at that time. And look what kind of experiences brought to me. Only in that time you'll be able to be so steady to see everything all together, and then allow yourself to celebrate it by opening the door for the new question on purpose. Yes, you are to breathe more. Yes, you are to loosen up your mind. Yes, you are to distract yourself from trying to dig too much too soon. In other words, you want to dig when you're in answer. You don't want to dig when you're in question.
So I guess it's just continuing to recognize the discomfort and not dig into it when I'm feeling it. Just say, this isn't the time. Just let it.
This isn't. So what you want to keep within the discomfort enough to get the clarity of it. So give us a specific example. We want you to be as specific as possible.
This right here, just asking a question. It's really.
So you say, so you're in a place and you're feeling something like this. You go to the place of, I really want to ask the question, but this is discomfort. Why am I feeling this discomfort? Why am I so discomforting? And then you catch yourself saying, I'm just birthing the question. What is my desire? What is the clarity of my wanting? I've been observing and choosing all these people asking questions with so much ease. Some of them also struggle like me, but a lot of them are really asking them freely. I want to be able to ask the question freely. And here it is, your desire. And while I know that I want to get to that place, I want to be in that place of answer at that time, I do not see it, the clarity of that right now. I'm not feeling it. And I know if I want to get there sooner, I am not to start digging in of why am I not seeing it, or I don't want to go back into observe and choose. I want to stay in a place of steady. In other words, I want to get to the place of steady so I can feel that I can ask any question. And from that point on, to see the discovery of all of it. I see the value in this experience. I see the value if really being a little bit not comfortable, because then I will find a comfort about this. I want to find a comfort on this topic. I want to find steadiness on this topic. And I know the only way to get there is now not to dig to see what the value is and why is this happening to me right now, but to shift my attention from it. I know there is a value and I'm not really sure what it is right now. And I don't care to find out right now because I want to get to the place of steady and answers. And then I want to really download the whole journey behind, and I will see not only the value of this desire, but all the other desires that were hatched along the way. I don't want to be going in a harder way of trying to foresee it and go back and forth. I want to move to the place of answer and see in a retrospect all these desires that have been hatched, including this one about being able to ask more questions more comfortably. And from that place of steady, I know that as soon as I get to that place of steady, I will dig in. I will be milking the place of steady. I will not be holding on to it, because when I go from the place of steady to look back into the value, it will be the time for me to ask the new question. And what a more masterful experience of being aware and directing my own creation I can be part of. This is so, so, so satisfying. We would go about it something like that.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to be listening back to that. Thank you so much.
Go ahead.
Hi. Okay. So I would like to ask about the oneness of us all. Find further resonance with that. I've seen glimpses within my experience, or felt the oneness of everyone and everything. And so kind of going back to my last question of these reflections that I've chosen to startle myself with, Which I can see that in the oneness of us all and everything. And I realize as I'm kind of formulating this question, I'm still putting some separateness, but that's okay. That's what's coming to my mind.
Separateness will always come to your mind. In other words, your mind is there to separate. Your mind is there to chop everything up in pieces, and then you, unfocusing, put it all together.
Okay. So, if I were to focus on myself and loving myself fully, all of myself, all of the parts of myself, does that help me in my discovery of these reflections that...
If you were to love every single aspect from every angle reflecting back to you, you loving everything and seeing everything from the perspective of one, you will be only in a perspective of one and not physically focused. In other words, you will always look for trouble. You will always look for something else. You will always look for something that is not going to be resonating with you, so you can find the journey of making it resonate with you. And once you find it all with all familiar topics and all familiar people within you, you will continue going with more and more people. You will really start going like a crazy person looking for trouble.
That's funny. So I'm wondering if, as I'm trying to apply this way of being, if I'm almost like pushing against the thought of trouble, or
we understand it's not a popular word. In other words, you finding the resonance and ease and love and appreciation, which is the natural state for you. But once you get to the place of seeing that as a steady thing, once you have the tools, well, then imagine that you get to the place of easy and steady, and then you stay there for hours and days and weeks and months. In other words, being in a place of that of unfocus, it's very satisfying. You can be in that place. You can get yourself to the places of meditation so much so that it's so satisfying that your physicality becomes even fragile because of that, because you're enjoying more of that vastness within you, because as we say, majority of you is not in a physical form. And so as you go about that experience, you can choose how much you want to go. Well, now you're maybe even majorly still focused on your physicality, but as you explore different dimensions, you can predominantly be there and then choosing for more trouble, choosing to go and work certain things out, because there's always going to be something to be worked out, but not from the place of question, but from the place of seeing the value of the process of worked out by allowing your discovery of more and more steady. Because once there is nothing to work out, you go and look for more things to work out, because the journey, the process, the journey, the process, the now, the now, the now, the now is all that you want to experience, and that you want to experience consciously.
Okay, so if the reflection that I get back as I be in the question or the discomfort or the discovery or whatever that looks like, many reflections coming back to me are that of like, wow, that's really awesome that you can do that, and so fun and so exciting, and that's something that I want to strive towards. And few reflections are that it seems hard, or that it seems troublesome.
Well, go for the ones that resonate with you. In other words, go to the ones to resonate with you, and don't get distracted by the ones that don't. In other words, the one that resonate with you, you go about them and make them so steady within you that then when you're from that place of steady, when you have that locked in, then the ones that feel troublesome or something you don't want to go for now, you will feel that that's the next logical step. In other words, when you're in a place of question, all you want to get is to balance it out to question answer. Well, once you balance it out to question answer, you want to apply the steady towards some other things. That when you being aware that you understand the concept of you want to be a troublemaker, you understanding that you're one with everything that exists, you understanding that everything is reflection of you, does not mean that you're consistently in a trouble. In other words, you're just getting more efficient about getting in and out through the flashlight of your attention.
So is that me covering the mirror? Or
that is you covering the mirror, but not covering the mirror knowing that that mirror is forever out. That's you covering the mirror just for a moment, saying there's other mirrors that I'm about to never cover again, and I want to solidify them, and then I'll look at you, troublemaker, when I'm ready to look at you and to get you eventually to be open as well.
Okay.
Now this is the conversation everybody came for today.
So then I feel that a lot. I feel that.
In other words, will allow you now, will offer you a moment of reflection. We'll just ask you to be on mute. There is some noise in the background coming through when you're not speaking. And so as you go about these experiences, keep in mind, Kosta, for example, is always having active things that he is working through, and then he has some things that he wants to do, but they're not there. For example, he's been working on his food regimen for years. He started about 7 or 8 years ago, trying things out. When Armand met him, he thought Kosta was crazy. He would make sandwiches or cook things on Sunday for the whole week ahead. He would cook really without any kind of flavor to it, just a little bit of salt and pepper and a little bit of oil, just because he wanted to try different things. He had moments where he was only pescatarian. He had moments where he tried gluten-free. He had moments where he was getting himself out of sugar, and then recently really started finding the balance, but knew since certain moment in time, probably 7 or 8 years ago, that he really wants to find more and more and more and more and more efficient way for his body to be handled and nurtured, so he can have more opportunity for focus and focus dance anytime he pleases. And so he's been exploring some vegetarian options and even some vegan options, and then he's still eating meat and still eating fish, quite some, but he also loves to eat a lot of fresh food nowadays. In other words, the variety he's been bringing on, he still has certain ideas, certain goals. He still wants to have more fresh food, and he still wants to have less meat and more protein coming from different other things, and he wants to get all the minerals through the food instead of through the supplements that he's buying in a pharmacy. In other words, but he did not make all of that stop. In other words, he's not getting discouraged because not everything is happening that way. So he knows that there are certain things that are easier to become a habit and to become that mirror that he doesn't have to cover anymore. Like, for example, sugar that he could not stay away from before. And now, even though he has compulsive moments of having it too much, it's never for too many days in a row. Now he's more conscious about it. And so what we're trying to say here with you is that you will always have things that are actively on the shelf of completely open mirrors. They used to be covered, and then you're going to have a shelf that you're covering, opening things up, and then you're going to have a shelf of things that you're completely covered, but you're aware that eventually you'll get there. In other words, how quickly you get there is by understanding that there is just so much your flashlight of attention can have and nurture and kind of solidify as so steady that, in other words, it's like you're opening the box of this topic when you're so conscious about it that you don't have almost any automation about it. That is the time when that topic is completely with an open reflection where you do not mind looking at it because you're never thrown away, because that aspect of life for you is conscious. That part life of you is in the now. And so this topic keeps opening that up, and this topic keeps opening that up. And that's how you, in everything you give your attention to, are elevating and becoming more and more and more predominantly in your now, in your now, in your now, in your now. Not beating yourself up why you're not in the now all the time, because you never really will be at all times in the now. You will have some things that are automatic, some things that are contextual and habitual at all times, but the process of finding more and more moments, more and more topics to reflect to from that place of now is why you're experiencing one after another physical iteration.
Beautiful. Thank you.
We really feel that this is an excellent opportunity to wrap up this glorious broadcast. Your questions are becoming more and more potent. Your questions are becoming more and more perceptive. Your questions are getting to be more specific, even when they're general of you understanding the concepts. And so we're thrilled for the new ones to come ahead, either in this format or in a format of events or in a format of the book that Kosta and Armand are so eager to put in front of you later this year, in appreciation of all the wonderful balance you are experiencing more and more and more with every question that you ask and answer to receive. For now, that's it.